Compass Pathways is a company that I really should have covered with the first video I ever did when I joined the channel with Adam. And for those who don't know about Compass Pathways, the reason I'm saying that I should have started with this company from the start is because they are the most advanced company in the psychedelic medicine sector when it comes to where they're at in the clinical trial process. They are going to have two very large phase 3 trials. They already started COMP005. That's getting going now. We will see the results of that in the summer of 2024. That's when we're supposed to see them. Could always change. We will see the results of COMP006 in mid 2025. That is also subject to change potentially. We don't know. These two trials are looking at treatment-resistant depression. And again, for those who don't know, Compass Pathways is looking at COMP360, a proprietary synthetic form of psilocybin. They're looking at multiple tough-to-treat mental health indications that, and it's not an exaggeration, these are life-threatening. They really are. And it's horrible. Treatment-resistant depression, PTSD, anorexia nervosa, to which there's actually, with anorexia, there are no medications specifically for anorexia, just for the comorbid disorders that go with it, sometimes, with depression. But nothing specifically for the root causes potentially of anorexia. Yeah, so today I'm just gonna go into, starting off with the company's cash position. I'm gonna briefly cover the structure of COMP005 and COMP006. There's a lot to that trial, so I'm gonna cover part A of it, and I would recommend anyone who wants to learn more about Compass, check out their investor deck on their website. It's very informative, and really quite interesting to look through. I'm very excited about this company. And with that being said, let me get into it. So let's start with cash. Cash is king, obviously, guys. We all know this, investing in the sector. Let me just start by saying Compass has had to raise, probably including their raises through the public markets and in the private rounds, probably 800 million, close to $1 billion in funding is what they've needed. And it just shows what it takes to get these psychedelics into the medical world. It's it's a lot of money. And the crazy part, or perhaps not crazy to those who have been following biotech for a while, I myself actually, it's only been 2.5 years, but I've learned a lot. They're probably going to have to raise more money, believe it or not. So let's get into it. They have $248 million cash right now. They can also receive another $160 million if the warrants are exercised. The strike price is at $9.93 a share. The company believes that with warrant coverage, in addition to their cash right now, that will lead them into late 2025. So it's good. They have a little bit of breathing room right now. I will also note that it was exciting to see in their most recent raise, traditional, well-known biotech funds get involved. I think that's a very validating sign for the sector. These are people who, they invest in, again, I said it, traditional biotech companies. So the fact that they see this as a good opportunity to get involved at this stage is, I think, validating for Compass and the whole sector. And these late stage trials they will be able to now run with this cash. The results of those trials, again, could be huge for Compass and huge for the sector as a whole. So something to really keep an eye on. The man leading the way here with Compass Pathways is arguably the most qualified in the space to be running a psychedelic medicine company. He's up there. He may be number one. It depends who you ask, but everyone you ask who follows the space closely and has put in considerable amount of money into the sector, they will tell you he's top notch. And that's because I'm going to read off his bio quickly. Kabir Nath, for those who don't know, has approximately 30 years of experience in the biopharmaceutical and medical device industry. Prior to joining Compass, Kabir was Senior Managing Director of Global Pharmaceuticals at Otsuka. And before that, President and CEO of Otsuka's North American pharmaceutical business, where he led the development of pharmaceutical products and digital solutions addressing complex mental health needs. The whole team at Compass is very impressive, especially, and this from talking to people, just looking at their bios, hearing the way that they are able to express themselves with their goals and mission at Compass. And when I look at the Compass investor deck, everyone, you just can, and not to knock on any of these other companies, but Compass is just so far ahead of everyone with where they're at. The size of this trial they're running, it dwarfs what everyone else is doing right now. Absolutely dwarfs it. So, I used to, myself, I would say, oh, like Compass is cool, but like they're working with longer acting psilocybin. I'm not too interested. I had second thoughts about that when I looked through their investor deck very carefully. I spent 2.5 hours really trying to understand everything in their investor deck. They're just so far ahead of everyone. And they're going to be first to market. They may have, they may be 2 to 3 years ahead of everyone else before another for-profit company has a psychedelic on the market. And I'm very impressed with what I now know about Compass. I always had a good understanding of Compass Pathways, I would say, but it changes when you really look into the details of their investor deck. And I would recommend anyone, when you're learning about these companies, especially if you have a lot of money with these companies, it's a must to look through these investor decks and to try to understand as much as you can, understand the risks, understand what I'm going to go into now is the structures of these trials. What are these companies looking for in these trials? Very important to know. And I'm going to briefly go over Comp 005, Comp 006, and the primary endpoints that they're looking at here. So let's just take it back a little bit. In the phase 2B, the primary endpoint was change in baseline MADRS between the 1 milligram group, active placebo, and the 25 milligram group. That was their primary endpoint. They also had a 10 milligram group, which was interesting to see. And the results got better as you went up in those doses, which was also interesting to see. 10 milligrams, it doesn't seem like is enough. I actually have spoken with some people, and it's hard to get an exact answer, but it's believed that the 25 milligrams is equivalent to, and it's tough because the purity changes with a lot of mushrooms, but I guess on average, let's say 3.5 grams of mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. So it's a pretty big dose. The primary endpoint in their phase 2B was change in baseline MADRS at week 3 after a single administration of Comp 360 between the 25 milligram group, 1 milligram group. What they saw was a 6.6 difference in the MADRS between those two groups, which is very good. With SSRIs, current standard of care for depression, we typically see a 2-point difference, and people may not even be able to benefit if they do at all. They won't be able to benefit potentially a month after they start taking their medication, maybe even 2 months for some people. So you compare 6.6 difference to 2, it's a huge difference. And they had 30% of people in remission at week 3 in the psilocybin group. And that went down to 24% at 12 weeks. So think about it. One single dose led to these results. Pretty incredible, with the company's preparation, integration, the dosing session, the psychological support that they offer. They are really getting it down to a science with how much experience that they have gained through these large clinical trials. Phase 2B, I believe, was 240 people, maybe a little bit more. So it was a big trial. They're learning a lot about how to offer psychological support, what works, what doesn't. They're even looking at AI language modeling, I believe it's called, to try to predict who's going to be a sustained responder with these treatments. So what do we see what are they looking for in COMP005? Well, the primary endpoint will actually be at the 6-week mark between, they're looking at, again, the difference change in baseline MADRS between the 25 milligram group. And actually, in this case, it's a placebo it's not 1 milligrams, it's 0. It's a sugar pill, I guess, essentially. I don't know if that'll make a big difference. 1 milligram may not do much, probably does nothing, but there are people there is a placebo effect in these trials, believe it or not. There are people who come out thinking they had a psychedelic trip in the 1 milligram group. I've heard people at Compass and Cybin actually talk about this. So it's very interesting. So again, the 6-week mark, they will be looking at change in baseline MADRS between 25 milligrams, 1 milligram. Single dose, keep in mind, and that's where things get interesting with COMP006. So back to COMP005. Sorry, a little bit all over the place here, guys. There's a lot to cover. COMP005, it's 255 people, 2-to-1 randomization, so 170 people in the psilocybin group, 85 in the placebo group. Now in COMP006, in the COMP006 trial, it is 568 people. Randomization is 2-1-1, so that means 284 people in the 25 milligram group, 142 people in the 10 milligram group, and 140 people in the 1 milligram active placebo group. Now, what makes this trial different is that instead of the 1 dose, people will also get a second dose, and keep in mind, blinded, obviously. So everyone will stay in their dosing group. The dose doesn't change. The 25 mil group, when they get that 1 dose at week 3, they will get 25 milligrams again. Same with that goes for 10 milligram, 1 milligram. They get their same dose. And the primary endpoint is also the same. But what's interesting here is that we will see if perhaps 2 doses is more effective. Keep in mind with COMP005 and COMP006, there is also a part B and a part C to the trial. And people are followed out to week 52. Again, I'm not going to go exactly into those details because it is a lot. If anyone ever wanted to speak with me about how they're doing this in part B, part C, feel free to reach out. I love talking about this. Also, it's not too hard to understand. Anyone's capable of understanding this stuff with time and effort. If you're really interested, I do, again, recommend going to the Compass Pathways investor deck. So now that we covered the structure of COMP005 and COMP006 trial, let's look at the other things that Compass Pathways is, other indications they're looking at. So they have a PTSD open label trial. So people know that they're getting the treatment 100%. They're looking at 25 milligrams again. And those results are supposed to come out by the end of the year. Now, there isn't as much data on psilocybin for PTSD, so it's hard to know what to expect here. I think, people have said, oh, why is Compass Pathways looking at psilocybin for PTSD? MAPS already has like the best, like their results were crazy from phase 3, and I agree, but perhaps COMP360 can work better for a specific population within PTSD. These guys at Compass are doing a lot to understand of why a drug works for someone and why it may not. They put in a lot of effort into this, and it is really impressive. Also with psilocybin, the big promise here with also in treatment-resistant depression, when you compare to esketamine, people are getting very good results, it seems, so far with 1 dose. And maybe this is the case for PTSD, that it could be 1 dose that helps a lot of people. With MAPS protocol, it's 3 doses, 9 other therapy sessions. So maybe perhaps a more convenient treatment for some. And then in terms of comparing it to esketamine, people have to come in once a week to receive this treatment. in the beginning, they come twice a week into a clinic to receive this treatment. And they're watched by someone. They have to have someone drive them home. And then subsequently, they do it once a week for an extended time. So, we're all in the sector worrying about, scalability and such. I have confidence that if they are able to scale these types of therapies with the way they're doing with esketamine, that they can do it with psychedelics that may require way less visits to the clinic. But then there also comes into the fact that, speaking with people, it seems that these classic psychedelics require more psychological support. So there will most likely need to be, obviously with Compass, there's trained therapists, but even for all these other 5-HT2A agonists, it's a little more interactive, I should say. But, esketamine is on track to do $600 million by the end of the year. People were worried that it wasn't going to do well. It had a slow start, but it's looking to be $1 billion drug. And these psychedelics not only will benefit from, people being more open to these alternative treatments, there's also a clinical infrastructure that has been set out to administer J&J Spravato. And these companies will be able to piggyback off of that. So that's something to think about. I like to think about these things going forward. So as I said, they're looking at PTSD. They're also looking at anorexia nervosa in a phase 2 trial. Again, I mentioned there's no medications approved specifically for that indication. Again, people can perhaps be prescribed medications for comorbid disorders, like maybe they're dealing with depression, anxiety, but for anorexia, there is nothing specifically approved. So this is an area of significant unmet need, obviously, like all these other indications. And again, perhaps psilocybin may be able to help people get to the root causes of what is perhaps causing them to develop these disorders. Now, a lot of this is just learning more about mental health disorders. It's very complex. It's not just, people will say like, oh, everyone gets upset. Well, not everyone has the same biology. Not everyone reacts the same to certain life circumstances. Not everyone is dealt the same genetics. There's a lot of interplay between all of these factors, and it's something to keep in mind. But with that being said, I think there are some root causes, it's just my opinion, that can be addressed with anorexia. Perhaps people will be able to think differently about how they view their body and think differently of how they are acting based on how they feel about their body and stuff like that. So this is all very exciting stuff. I keep on saying that, but it really is. It really is. There's nothing more exciting to me than seeing psychedelic medicine potentially reach the medical world. So let's go into Beyond Comp 360. A lot of people aren't aware of this because Compass puts a lot of focus on their treatments that are most advanced, but this company is developing prodrugs and novel psychedelic and non-psychedelic chemical entities through their Discovery Center in Philadelphia, led by Dr. Jason Wallach. Actually, Jason Wallach, PhD, he's actually a good friend of Hamilton Morris, I found out, who also is at Compass Pathways. I'm sure some of you folks have watched Hamilton Morris and Vice. Very interesting guy. So this guy, Dr. Jason Wallach, great reputation, assistant professor at St. Joseph's University. Compass gave him $500,000 initially to fund his research at his lab, the Discovery Center. So right now they have prodrugs in preclinical development and these novel 5-HT2A agonists in discovery. They haven't spoke too much about it, but you better believe that Compass is preparing to follow next gen. Again, I can't stress enough how impressed I am with the work Compass is doing, and just it took me going through their investor deck, comparing it to others in the space, to realize just how far ahead they are of the competition. And I might start a position in Compass at these prices. I think they're at a $360 million market cap, and you have their cash position. By the way, I'll also add they have an 8% stake in Delix Therapeutics. They invested $500,000 into Delix, I think in the seed round, maybe pre-seed. I assume that investment is worth much more considering the progress Delix is making with non-hallucinogenic psychoplastogens. So there's a lot to compass beyond Comp 360. But I was guilty of, not being too excited about Comp 360 because, I guess it's first gen, maybe weaker patent protection. But let me just say, guys, they've been challenged several times by, people like at Porta Sofia who look for prior art to kind of dismantle some of these patents. The Compass patents have stood the test of time so far, and I personally think that's not going to change. I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in IP, but just seeing that they're able to withstand these challenges, I think is very validating to their IP portfolio. So everyone, that is it for today with Compass Pathways. Again, if anyone would like to reach out to me to talk about the Part B and Part C parts of the trial for Comp 005 and Comp 006, please reach out to me. I love talking about this. Again, I'll say it again, very excited about Compass Pathways. And with that being said, I hope everyone maybe learned something from this video and have a great day. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And also follow us at Psyched Insights on Twitter, and that's where you can reach out to me. Thank you very much. Have a great day.